Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, featuring today's top directors sharing behind-the-scenes stories of their latest films and insights into the craft of directing. Please take a second to subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Felix Van Groeningen's new family drama, Beautiful Boy. Based on the pair of memoirs by father and son David and Nic Sheff, the film chronicles the heartbreak experienced by a family coping with addiction over many years, including survival, relapse, and recovery. In addition to Beautiful Boy, Mr. Van Groeningen's credits include the feature films Belgica and The Broken Circle Breakdown. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Van Groeningen spoke with director Mike Mills about filming Beautiful Boy. During their conversation, Mr. Van Groeningen discusses the challenges of shooting his first English-language film, transforming the story into more of an experience through his portrayal of time, and making the songs on the soundtrack function as the score.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for staying for the Q&A, and Felix, thanks so much for reaching out to me. I'm very honored to be here.
Thank you.
I'll try to get a conversation going, and maybe we'll reach out in the middle for some questions here and there. So, generate questions in your mind. We watched a little bit at the end together just now. And two of my favorite, most beautiful shots are the one where he ODs in the bathroom, that amazing horizontality and the light and the way he falls down in the light. Everything about it, I felt like kind of surmised your film to me. And it's like this lack of control over ourselves and between the people we love, and the paradox of that relationship between the father and the son, like I'm a dad, so close, so interwoven, and yet alone, yet things they can't know, things they can't reach through, right? And that really killed me, that part. I know that you have a special relationship with the real people behind this film. Can you talk a little bit about that whole process, or how you came to this material, and how I learned a little bit today about you have a relationship with them, which was kind of amazing to me.
So the project was pitched to me, and but just the books. So I was part of the writing, and we developed the whole this project. So, but the producers had the rights to the books, and they talked to me about it, and I was really intrigued. And very early on, I met with both David and Nic.
Do you all know? So it's two memoirs of Nic's addiction.
Yeah.
And it's from the father and the son's perspective that you guys found a way to blend.
Yeah, correct. Which was a long journey, because it's two books. It's a lot of material. They do reference the same things, and a couple of the same events occur in both books, but there are really 2 points of view, which was what made it so unique. And reading those both memoirs made me, was really an eye-opener in how we look upon addiction still as a moral failure. And I've seen addiction from nearby. My family also saw that my family didn't have a way to deal with it, and so it was a very empathic insight. But from the beginning on, it really clicked with David and Nic. They had seen a film that had made Broken Circle Breakdown, which was also how I met the producers, because that film was Oscar nominated in 2014. And they thought it really, my style really matched with their story and their sensibility. So they gave me a lot of trust. But throughout the process, I kept getting in touch with them. I went over to David's house in Marin County. He invited me. I stayed a couple of days. We went for long walks and talks. We had long talks. And so, I really got to be part of this amazing family, and by opening up, they allowed the movie to become so much more authentic, I feel, because little things like the artwork you see is Karen's art, the journal that was drawn, the journal you see that David watches, so Nic's artwork is drawn by Nic's little brother, Jasper. So all those things really mattered, I feel, but also just, getting to know him, getting to feel the love that, that is amazing in their family. And I got to be part of it, and I actually brought the whole crew then a second time. When I went the second time to their house, I brought the whole crew, so they all got to feel this and see this.
It's amazing that they trusted you so much with something so vulnerable, like life and death, really. Does anyone want to ask a question about how it related to the material? Or did anyone hear that toughest thing about directing that surprised Felix?
Specifically this movie, or in general?
Real quick, in this movie, the gentleman asked, what was the toughest thing about directing that surprised Felix?
Good question. This is my first English language film, bigger budget also, and I guess the stress that came with that, especially in the leading up, in the prepping this film, because I have made 5 films in Belgium, but was used to working with always the same crew. Although for this film I did bring my DP and my editor, but had a whole new crew that I had to get around me, and I'm sort of a very faithful director in Belgium. My last 3 films was like exact same crew, so I need to feel comfortable, I think. But I took time to make this film and to make it mine, to own it. I wrote it. I spent years of really making it mine, and so by the time we got to shooting, really, I actually felt really comfortable and had a great time. It didn't feel different compared to directing a film back in Belgium. The actors were amazing. So the whole shoot wasn't a walk in the park, because it's a tough subject, but there was so much love and dedication from the whole crew, and focus. Steve Carell is a super focused actor, so it was amazing to see him work. Between takes, we would constantly talk about the subject matter, so all of that went really amazing, and I can't really think of things that were hard, actually.
I love how you treat time in your film fabric, and the way it relates to time. Often you have the same characters in the same space, but it's a different time, and it's like a different relationship, really. And I thought that was such an interesting way to talk about what's happening in the story, where you have someone, but they're also not there. There's someone who's there and maybe gone or changed or different. And I loved how time wasn't like singular. It's sort of interwoven with different pasts, not just one past, often a couple different layers of past, a couple layers of the Nic character. How did you develop that?
It's something that, if you've seen my previous movies, me and my editor, we sort of have been doing it for a while. So it's a part of film grammar that I think is very fascinating. How far you can go in creating this logic inside a film that makes sense. Although, like, if you would, and that's the thing. I think if you do it on paper, it doesn't make sense. So it is something that at the heart is constructed sort of in the script, I feel, but executed in while editing, because you got to have the ideas. You got to have the idea of those flashbacks going back in time. So seeing the younger Nic and how they work in David's psychology. So he's, as he's losing his son, he is thinking about their special moments or the promises he made, or he's also examining like, where did I go wrong? So that idea existed from the very beginning. Like, I knew we needed it to make this film work, to make this film an experience instead of just a story. But while crafting it in the script phase, you do make it more cerebral, and you have to be able to hold on to something. And then you shoot it that way, of course, and then in the edit, you see the first cut, and you think it's horrible. And then you have to, sort of let go of what you thought you had come to, and find the emotional logic of the film. And there's a lot of, I feel, expository things that you realize that you don't need, and then embrace the magic along the way. And I have a very close collaboration with my editor, who's done all of my films, and it's just a shared passion, like to see how far can we take this.
To me, it makes it it's like the most cinematic parts of the film too, where it's like something that could be only told in the state of film, like only be told in time. It can only be told with these visual chunks that you're sort of presenting. It's very different than anything that could be written, if it starts from a written place. There's some of my favorite parts were just these kind of waiting passages, often while Nic has disappeared, and they're waiting. There's one about 50 minutes in, and there's one about 85 minutes in, where that sunrise sunset is playing, and it ends with an amazing shot of the sprinkler. You return to the sprinkler, and this time it's empty of life.
Yeah.
And there's no forward motion, but I feel like your directorial qualities really flourish in those moments, because I'm getting such a sense of life and what's happening, and I'm not being forced to think anything. And it reminds me all the times I've waited for someone like in a ICU or something, and it was just very strong.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm also really proud of that section, and also the way it lands there. Then you have all these shots of the house, and it is the house you lived in through this film, and it's this little paradise that David tried to create for his family, like a safe haven, and then it becomes so haunted in a sense. And it's one of the things when I read the books that struck me was how addiction seeped into every fiber of family life, and this through the house, this was a way of trying to recreate this feeling.
Yeah.
Through the depiction of the house, and then eventually it leads up to Nic breaking into the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. To me, it kind of seemed like the structure of the film was sort of like intoxicated by relapse itself. That kind of things repeated, history repeated, but also forward motion wasn't super important, or it's kind of like made me distrust it, like you would in recovery. It's like one day at a time, or you just don't know what's going to happen next. Is there another question? Does anyone have something they'd like to bring to the conversation? Yeah, in the back. The question was, Felix mentioned addiction in a personal way, something, and did that inform the work, or did that help him with the material?
Made me really dedicated, I think, to tell this story. Realizing that we, as a family, didn't have the tools, and then seeing or learning about this family that also doesn't have that things that they have the tools, but you also see them go through this journey and realize that there are no easy answers. It was just revelatory, I guess, and just made me feel, that I had missed opportunities to try and help people, and so it's sort of like then doing it through this film is a way to make up, maybe, or but I've seen I've seen. My father had a bar, so I've seen a lot happen there. There's really close people in our family that were addicted to heroin and got really messed up. And it's I've talked about it in previous films. So something is always like pulling me to try and understand what people pulls into those dark moments. I can't explain why actually, but
let's shift gears a little bit. I'm very taken by your compositions and just the very organic feeling of your shot construction or way a scene was put together. It reminded me a little bit of like Jane Campion, who I adore, where just the coverage isn't like exactly what you expect. One might be very profile and one might be straight on. How do you come up with your coverage? How do you develop a scene visually?
Every film that I make has a very different approach, I feel. I've done quite some handheld and wilder stuff than this, but for this film, I wanted it to be truthful and simple but layered. But what does that mean? I don't know. It's just it was a starting point, I guess, and then you still have to find your own style or have this film find its own style. And what I like to do is I rehearse with my actors and Ruben, my DP, he will be there and shoot stuff or try stuff, or we will have rehearsals at the actual locations already to get to know the location and really. So there are usually a couple of the ideas from the beginning on, but then it's really by taking the time to figure it out on the moment itself, but not in a simple we'll wing it way, but really work hard in prep to get there. The shot you mentioned when Nick is on the bathroom floor, we had the bathroom that was designed on stage. It was built, and we really spent like a couple of hours. It was the first scene we had shot. We shot actually.
The film?
Yeah.
Wow.
So pretty crazy also to start with that scene, but in hindsight, good also.
Yeah.
And
wow.
it's
What a performance from Timothy too. Amazing.
But we spent hours in that bathroom with Timmy and by ourselves, like figuring like all the angles. What can we do? And all of a sudden, it was like, this is so amazing. And it, the composition, just the way he's laying there, how he appears and disappears, and is like also in a coffin almost. So
a brightly lit coffin, a sort of heavenly lit coffin. Yeah.
So, this was the film where we wanted to, just spend a lot of time on detail without it being showy, I guess.
Yeah, it felt very al dente in a way. It felt very fresh and not overwrought, which I appreciated, especially for the material being so dramatic. And there's so many ways that I feel like the film really flourished in these kind of non-defined moments, or these very simple moments, even when the CPR in the car. Such a dramatic scene, but somehow it's like very, you're not like pushed into this scene. Maybe it's partly Timothy's state he's in. Or even one of the other really gorgeous shots is where you boom up into that window where the father's helping him walk down that long hallway. And just the way that booms up and the lines in the glass and everything. Such an emotional scene, but really very gentle. And I really appreciated that kind of respect.
Thank you. Yeah. I think the way we got there, I talked about, and it's making a film is a journey. Yeah. I feel, I love embracing like whatever crosses your path, being open to it, and taking it along to make the film the best possible film. sometimes, you know, accidents happen, they can really like make your film. The last shot of the movie, Divine, we actually had a different place where we were going to shoot. We haven't. At the final moment, it couldn't happen. So we were really happy with that one. It made sense. We had it. We loved it for very different reasons than this one. And then, okay, we have to find a new one. And then we saw this wall all of a sudden as we were just walking around. I was just like, this is it. This is, and just like that. Seeing it and realizing like this is it is just such a great part of filmmaking, I feel.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that choice. It's like your final shot of the film, it really being like they're stuck in the shade. They're kind of tucked back in, and really it's very flat in a way, but the vines is sort of like talking to the chaos or the lack of control that seems to keep coming up in the film. I'm getting the nod over there. We only have a little bit of time. Does anyone else have a question? You didn't get to ask one yet. So the question was, he has at least five, I feel like, actors playing Nick, and how did you pull that off? And
just having a great casting director, I assume, and have them like, you know, cast a lot of kids, and being lucky, I guess. I mean, Jack Dylan Grazer, who plays 12-year-old Nick, he was also in the movie It, so he's done some big films. But, you know, I just seeing the photo and holding it next to Timothy's and then seeing like, this is amazing. But I, you know, in general, I also really enjoy working with kids. It's for me, it's not that different as working with an actor. Of course, it's a very different level, but it's also just about agreeing on a certain language that you have to find and a way to get there. So yeah, I really love it. I think I was really lucky with some of the kids that showed up too.
So someone asked, what was the hardest part? What's the part that like makes you happiest in the whole directing process?
Or
satisfied feeling.
The fact that it's every day is like a challenge. Like, you know, there's always something that will go not as planned, and then how do you make it work? And then and getting there, I guess you do always get there at the end of the day. I feel usually, not always, but yeah, having a scene and like you did it in rehearsals, and you felt, you know, you were going to get somewhere, and then you're shooting it and it's just not working, and all of a sudden you know, you come up with this idea, what if you try this, or the actor comes with an idea and you embrace it, and then it starts to work, and then you're just, you know, crying behind your monitor. That's what I want to do every day.
Is anyone? Yeah, there was a question in the back there.
I didn't get the last part.
So she was asking about the score, which she appreciated, and especially the first scene where it was silent, and then when he's looking for the sun, you go to that very, I think is it a Nirvana track? You go to a very loud, very, very intense piece.
Yeah. Well, so there's no score. There's only existing music that we start to use as score somehow, and it was also a process. It was inspired by the books. I knew I always wanted to work with a very eclectic soundtrack of existing songs. Although I thought, and for a while I also did in post-production, work with a composer and had a soundtrack. But this idea of the eclectic music found its way into the script writing and into scenes that are in the movie, with the Nirvana, indeed, where David and Nic are rocking out in the car, and David singing "Beautiful Boy" for as a lullaby for little Nick. And then, so in the process of the editing, we were adding songs, and we had a couple of songs and some score, and then, you know, it was okay, but it wasn't bold enough, and it was my editor who suggested, or pushed me rather, to try and give it a chance to do it without the score, to throw the score out and to go bolder in the music choices. And that started to really work because it forced us to turn songs into score, but they were connected to the characters on every level, because you knew they were into music. David's a rock journalist. You see that it's a shared passion, so it made sense for who they are, and also the way the movie is built and flows through time and works in a melancholic way at sometimes, and works the way memory works. So it became the soundtrack of their lives, actually. Mm-hmm. And then just these songs that really can play out for like 7 minutes and become score is something that we hadn't seen really before in this way, and we thought it worked really well.
Yeah, it worked beautifully. I think I'm getting the signal.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the beautiful film.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks everyone for coming. Okay. Good night.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have a lot more for you in the coming weeks as awards season approaches, including Q&As from Paul Greengrass, George Tillman Jr., and Joel Edgerton, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to rate and review us on iTunes. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow cinephiles find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.